Hello and congratulations on your purchase of some Crooked Feather wings. A lot of you, unless you buy a 6-foot set, are going to need to know how to put these together. They will mostly be assembled, but generally speaking, USPS does not like it when we give them gigantic packages. So we are going to have to take the wings off of this back brace. So what you're going to get when you get these in the mail is you're going to get this back brace piece is going to be separate, and then each of these wings is going to be separate. For the sake of expediency, I have one on here now, but the process is the same for both sides. What you just want to do is make sure that the lower part of your back brace, where your back is where this little loop is at the bottom. And so when you put these on, make sure that the wings are pointing downward. The feathers are, you know, the big fake feathers are pointed down this way. Don't put them upside down. I've had people do that. It's far less comfortable. And then you're going to have this sticking up by your neck and it won't make any sense. So and then the back side of the wings, you can tell on one side you'll have the battery and the board go on the back. And if you are still confused, you can pull back the feathers here and you can see that we have the actuators. Those motors also go on the back side. So if you're confused as to what needs to go on here, you should have the actuators and the electronics should all be facing you while you're putting these together, and then your back will go on this side. So when you get these in, there's going to be, you know, well, 4 bolts, but right now 2 bolts that have a nylock nut and 2 washers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take off one of those washers, really, just to put those to the side for a second. And then just so everything stays together, put that back on. So then what I'm going to do is if you pull back these feathered sleeves, you're going to notice that there are 2 metal bars. So and holes in those metal bars. So that's where we're going to put these bolts. We're going to take that washer and put it on the other side and then put on our nylock nut. Now, I'm going to go ahead, just so that I have a little more wiggle room while I'm working. I do both bars first before I tighten anything down. And washer, and then nut. Now you'll notice these nylocks, they have this little piece of nylon at the top. And you can't really, with your hands, you really can't get it any tighter than almost flush. And to deal with that, you are going to need a 7/16 inch socket wrench and regular wrench. The socket wrench is going to go underneath. There is a hole specifically designed so that this can fit in there. And you're gonna slot that up into the back brace underneath. And I'll even show you really quick. Oops. So here is a back brace. And as you can see, there's 4 little holes in the back that correspond to the holes that we're going to be bolting to. And this socket wrench just slides right in there and is the perfect length to be able to lock into the bolt on the other side. So we're going to go ahead and slide that up in there and latch on to that bolt. And then we are going to have to use our other wrench to tighten that down. And we need these tools to be able to do this just because of that nylon lock. The reason we use these nylon lock nuts, is so that as these wings open and close, they might rotate that nut and then make it come loose, and we don't want that. So if your wing is super wobbly, it shouldn't be doing that. You gotta tighten down these nuts a little bit more. And you'll notice that there's a lot of extra room. Get to that. Just a second. And probably go ahead and cut. So now that those are tightened down, you might notice that there's another about 1/2 inch left on this bolt. And that is there for a reason. If you go and you look at these sleeves, you'll notice these little silver holes, these little grommets. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna slip those grommets over top of those bolts. And what that does is hold all this down. And then you will have inside your charger box, you will have a little baggie with 4 more nylock nuts. And those are just to hand tighten. You don't have to tighten these down like crazy. But that's just to hand tighten down over those grommets. And then you can go ahead and like fluff the feathers over it, and then everything's nice and hidden, and that kind of helps mask the back brace. Before we do this other side, we want to make sure we get our electronics together. I'll have a link down below to just the electronics, so it's a little bit easier to see. But basically, you have a battery pack down at the bottom. You're going to have a smaller box, that's your control box, and then you're going to have your cords coming off each of the actuators, which are those motors that are inside the wing. So first what we're going to do is we're going to attach the actuators. Now this should be pretty easy. You can't, for example, the battery cable and the actuator cable do not have connectors that will work with one another. So theoretically, you're not going to be able to mess this up. You should be able to just find connectors that go in with each other and just go ahead and match them up, and then everything will be connected and ready to go. Now that that's all connected, we can go ahead and slip our grommets over those bolts, making sure that all of our electronics are going in between those bolts. So what we don't want is, say, like this actuator cable, we don't want it going over this top bolt or anything from inside here kind of looping underneath any of these bolts. We want to make sure that anything that goes across is inside the center of those 2 bolts. That way they're not going to get caught on the edge of anything and rip loose. So last 2 nylocks just to hold down that side. And we're done. So once you have these all together, you're just going to want to make sure that there's going to be 1 random wire coming out of that top box. Just have that coming out the top of the wing and over the back brace if you can. That way, this is what the signal goes to, and if this is hidden inside the wing or behind the back brace, you may not have good signal transmission and it might get blocked, and so your wings might be jerky or something like that. And if that's the case, just make sure that your wire is on the way out. So if you have any questions, please let me know, and I will be happy to help you through getting your new beautiful wings all together. Thanks.